Hi. All right, so continue. So now we get started writing our code in VS Code on HTML5. Okay, so looking at the course outline, the first module that we look at is an introduction to HTML. So these are the 4 things that we look at in this module. So the first one is just an introduction to the course which we've done and the basics of HTML. That's what we'll start with in this lesson. Then we set up a development environment, which we've done, which is just downloading VS Code, downloading Git, installing them, and just setting up VS Code for us to work with. Then we also look at understanding web development tools such as text editors and browsers. So we've done a bit of text editors. We've looked at VS Code, but we've not explored other text editors. You can do that. We can either go on Google and just search on the different text editors that you can use to write your code. We chose to use VS Code in this course because of its just nice features that it offers and the extensions, of course, that makes our work easier. Then with the browsers, like I said, there are different types that you can use. You can either go with Firefox, Safari, you can go with just different browsers, but in this course we'll be looking at Google Chrome. Then lastly, in this lesson we'll discuss basic structure of an HTML document. Right. So to just summarize what we look at, we just look at the basics of HTML, its basic structure, and we'll just look at an introduction to what web development is about, because we've looked at setting up the development and text editors. Okay, so let's get started. So the first question that we have is web development. What is web development? So web development is just a field in itself. And in this field, it involves developing websites. And these websites can either be full stack websites, or maybe just static websites, or just front-end websites, or just some back-end APIs and services, right? But looking at the course that we are dealing with, which is a full stack web development course, web development involves creating user interfaces that a user can interact with, and also a backend that can hold content or user information that can be displayed or used by a user as we give them access through APIs. Alright? So web development basically just involves building websites and web applications that a user can interact with. Right? So that's what web development involves. And there are actually 3 main components of web development. There is what we call the front-end development, there is also the server-side development, and there is also the back-end development. Okay, so with front-end development, it involves what the user is able to see. Okay, so I'll give you an example of what that is. Okay, so when you go on any website, okay, so just go on Google, right? We just go on Google. Once I land on this website or on this web page for Google, what I'm looking at is the front end of the website. Okay, but on the server side, what the server does is that it just receives or it just saves requests that we submit to it. So me just typing www.google.com and pressing enter, I'm directly sending a request to a server telling it what I want to see. And what I wanted to see was a front-end page for Google that I can use to search for whatever content I want. All right? And so the server went to the backend, all right? It went to the backend and brought some of the content that are not on the front end. What are some of those content? For example, you notice that on this top right corner here, you have my account details like my name and my email and the image itself. This content is not displayed on the front end. Okay, so if you open your own Google, okay, when you go to www.google.com, you won't see my image nor my name and email, but you'll be seeing your details. Why? Because this information is unique to each user. All right, so for those that have not logged into their Google Chrome browser, you notice that here maybe they'll tell you to log in or something, right? So there won't be your details. But once you log in, you will now get access to the backend that holds this information like your images, your name, and your email. That's the backend. So the backend involves content that is hidden from the user but can be given access depending on the conditions. Okay, so if, for example, a user is authenticated, they are signed in, they'll be able to see their account details like name, email, and picture like this. And so this is what we call the front end, and the server side is just what it's your website or your page is able to save you. So it receives requests and it also sends us a response back. We receive a response from the server and not the backend. So the server is more of the middleman between the front end and the backend. Okay, right. So let's get back to our slide. Okay, so we've discussed what web development is. So now how does the browser work together with websites? Okay, so now the browser is now the tool that enables us to browse through or to visit these different websites. So for example, when I click on this new tab, right, it gives me an option where I can now enter the domain name or the URL of a website. So in our case, we are typing www.google.com, right? So www.google, my bad, let me just put the W there. Okay, so when we type www.google.com, right, that's a unique URL or domain name specifically for Google, right? So when you create your own website, you can't give it a domain name of google.com because it's unique, all right? So with every website, it has its own URL or IP address. So every IP address, it's like a physical location for your home address, right? So every human being lives somewhere at a location, and every location has those addresses, right? So wherever you live, for example, myself, I live in Chilulu, right? So the place where I stay has a physical location. Okay, so now this physical location has an address. That address is not the same with my neighbor's address. They are all different locations. So it's the same when it comes to URLs. Every URL is unique in that when you type in www.google.com, you go to a specific unique URL, okay, or websites. So if I type www.google.com, I won't go to a Microsoft web page. I won't go to amazon.com, right? It will take me direct to the page for Google. So what the browser does is that it goes to a server and checks. So there is like a bookmark or a book list, right? That has got different IP addresses with different websites. So if I type www.google.com, it will take that address, then it will search through that book list. Then it will compare. When it finds the IP address, which is specifically for google.com, it will now save me the right pages, the right content for me to be able to see in the browser. Okay, but if I change here, I type amazon.com like that. Okay, it will take me to the Amazon page and not Google. Why? Because what the browser does is that it gets your URL, sends it to the server. The server now compares the URL that you've entered with the list of different unique addresses that are there. So it searches for that unique address. Then when it finds one that is exact, that is identical to the one that you've typed, it now gives you a response by getting that content and bringing it back to you, all right, to your front end. And now you are able to interact with the website and content. And that's how it works with the browser. Okay, so we'll now get into HTML and see what HTML is and what it does for us.